Bonjour! Today let's learn how to conjugate the verb devoir, which means must or to have to, in 5 different tenses. Okay guys, the reason why I have chosen devoir, it is because it belongs to the third group verbs and it is highly irregular. So please follow this lesson really well because I would like you to learn this verb by heart. It will come handy. Now remember that devoir in English can be said in 2 ways, must or have to. And obviously we do not have such a thing as must, so the verb that we need to use is devoir, which in effect can be translated as to have to or must in English, if you follow my grip here. Now, let's have a look at devoir in the present tense, okay? So, we are going to learn how to say I have to, you have to, he has to, and so on, or I must, you must, he must, and so on, okay? So, the way we do it is like this. Have a look at the verb in its infinitive form. It's devoir. When we conjugate it, and because it is a highly irregular verb, it becomes something quite different. Je dois, I must, or I have to. Tu dois. Il doit. He must, he has to. Elle doit. On doit. One must or one has to. Nous devons. We must. We must do. Oh, we must do. We have to. Vous devez. Ils doivent. Elles doivent. Okay, so it's really important for you to have a look at the present tense. If not, I'm not asking you to learn all the tenses, but at least the present tense, from devoir, which is the infinitive form of that verb, look what it becomes in its plural form. So, ils doivent, they must, okay? Suddenly the spelling completely has changed, especially for the singular forms of this pronouns, je, tu, il, elle, on, okay? Have a look now at the passé composé. Now, the passé composé is a past tense that happened in the past. So we want to say, I had to, okay? That's all we want to say. It's an action that took place in the past and is gone, done over with. How do we do that in French? We've got to have our pronouns, je, tu, il, elle, and then our auxiliary verbs that is attached to the past participle of the verb we want to conjugate. So the past participle of devoir is, roulement de tambour, it is du. Don't ask me why. Du with the accent circumflex on top. And this is the past participle. It goes with the auxiliary verb to have. So we say I have, you have, and so on. And then we add had to. Okay, I have had to. Okay, so here we go. J'ai dû. I have had to. Tu as dû. Il a dû. Elle a dû. On a dû. Nous avons dû. Vous avez dû. Ils ont dû. Elles ont dû. Now, the only way that you can conjugate this verb in the passé composé in the past tense is by knowing the auxiliary verb to have in the present tense and sometimes to be depending on which verb you're conjugating. Okay, in this case it is devoir. It has to come with the auxiliary verb to have, and this funny past participle do, okay? So, let's have a look now at the imperfect tense. Now, imperfect is a past tense as well, but what we want to say here is, I was having to, or I used to have to, okay? So, it's an action that took place in the past and somehow carried on over a certain length of time, okay? Not quite a passé composé, an imperfect tense. Here we go. So the way we are going to do that, we are going to take the stem of the new form of the present tense, which is, if you look at your chart, nous devons, okay, so we want the first stem here, DEV, okay, and we want to add it to our imperfect tense. So, je devais, that's the stem, and then we add the special imperfect ending. Je devais, I used to have to. Or I was having to. Tu devais. You used to have to, or you were having to. Il devait, he. Elle devait. On devait. Nous devions. Okay, have a look at the stem. Keeps exactly, is always the same, DEV. Vous deviez. Il devait, they used to have to. And elle devait, they used to have to. And this is for they, obviously the feminine plural version of they. Okay, so I know that it is really hard. Remember that this comes with a support guide with examples as well to put the verb into context as well. Now, and translation. Now, have a look at the verb again, devoir, in the future tense. So we want to say, I will have to, okay? I will must, but you can't say I will must, okay? So we say, I will have to. Using devoir, you must know the stem every time of this future tense. And how do you know that? Well, you don't really until you know that by heart, especially if it's a third group verb. So for devoir, it is devoir, D-E-V-R. Okay, so you use devoir throughout the future, okay? And you add those special endings, which are the future tense. Je devrais, A-I. Tu devras, so I will have to, you will have to. Il devra, he will have to. Elle devra, she will have to. On devra, one will have to. Nous devrons, okay, we will have to. Vous devrez, okay. Ils devront, and elles devront. Okay, and you're going to say, but how do I know these endings? You know, well, you do only if you follow a certain pattern and you learn them by heart. For future tense, it's easy because if you look at avoir in the present tense, j'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, on a, and so on, it is exactly those endings. So I, a, s, a, and so on. So o, n, s, E, Z, and O-N-T. You will see that these are exactly the same endings as the future tense, okay? Now, let's have a look at the conditional tense. Now, I want to ponder a little bit more on the conditional tense because the conditional is odd, especially for you in English, because to must or have to in a conditional become I should, okay? I should, or I would have to, okay? But you use this model, I should. Now, should, would, could does not exist in French. So we are using pouvoir, okay, or devoir for should, okay? Or, and then we do it like this. So I would have to, or I should, it's exactly the same, is je devrais. Okay, have a look at the difference between the future and the conditional, where the stem is exactly the same. So if you know the stem for the future, you will know the stem for the conditional. Je devrais, tu devrais, you should, or you would have to. Il devrait, elle devrait, on devrait. Okay, have a look. Nous devrions, so we should. Vous devriez. Il devrait, and elle devrait. So we had a look at the conditional. Now, if you look carefully, you will notice that the endings of the conditional is exactly the same as the ending of the imperfect tense. Now, you're going to tell me, well, so what is the difference if the endings are the same? Well, the stem is different. Can you see that? Je devais and je devrais, different, okay? The sound is different. So I would ask you to know these by heart, okay? You cannot possibly not do it unless you're taught how to do it. When it comes to the first group verbs, that's different. That's another story completely because it follows a certain pattern, and if you know that it's a first group verb, then you can conjugate them in the same way. However, for verbs such as devoir and pouvoir and, être or avoir or faire, you will see that you would need to learn these verbs by heart. Now that's it for me. Remember, there is a support guide available for this lesson at Learn French with Alexa website. And remember to subscribe to my awesome YouTube channel and leave a comment. Au revoir, à bientôt. Bisous, bisous.